Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian. We are back and we have a very exciting, and I mean very exciting. I know I say every time very exciting, but this is a very exciting video. We are taking a look at the newly released Four Roses Visitor Center Private Selection. This is a special 20-year-old Four Roses Single Barrel. Now, they released several of these single barrels when they had the opening of their new visitor center in Lawrenceburg. And they all seem to be from two different runs and all from the third tier. A little bit variance in proof from the same warehouse number. This is a single barrel OBSV. I'll link down below so you can check out the Four Roses recipes if you're not familiar. If you're not familiar, I'll put a little bubble up here, maybe to some of my other Four Roses videos that I have done. But I constantly get people asking for Four Roses content, and this bottle is pretty special of a release, and so I figured I had to bring it out here to talk about on the show. And you know what? This is actually a little bit special too. This will be my neck pour review, my first impressions of this. What I hoped to have done was to have this OBSV, 20 years old, against a younger, more accessible OBSV single barrel. And I went downstairs and found out I don't actually have any OBSVs currently at my house. So I was not able to do that. Shoot me a message down below in the comments if you want me to do some comparisons with this 20-year in other videos. I can try and find an OBSV to do that with. And I also thought about popping open this 16-year, 4-month OESO that I have. And I thought about doing kind of a, a 10 to 12 year OBSV, a 10 to 12 year OESO, and then have these hyper aged ones and kind of compare and talk about the nuances across a couple of different recipes that might pop out. I'm going a little long-winded. I'm sorry about that. But while I have you here, jump down below, subscribe if you haven't. I'm really close to 2,000 subscribers at the time of this recording, and I'd love to get there before the end of the year. So if you have found value in any of the content here, and you haven't subscribed yet, do so down below. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Leave me a message. Let me know if you like the things that you're hearing here on the channel, or if there's things you want to hear me talk about, feel free to shoot me a line. Let's dive in to this pour. It's not as dark as I would have expected it to be. 20 years old, Four Roses. I don't know what I thought it would be, but I thought it might have been a little bit darker than that. You have nice kind of golden hue here, and legs just sticking to the side of the glass. On the nose is a Four Roses fan's dream. It is a lot of caramel, but in a very nuanced, very complex way. I think Four Roses folks might know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of layers to pull back here. There's a little bit of sawdust. There's a little bit of well-oiled leather. There's definitely oak. There's raspberry. There's powdered sugar raspberry sweetness that I get sometimes on the LEs or some really good single barrels. There's hints of smoke. There's hints of root beer. Slightly medicinal or brandy cherry in there. A little bit of licorice note. There's silky milk chocolate. It's very, very fine. If anything, it's sort of an over-exaggerated milk chocolate bar, or like a milk chocolate candy, because it's so sweet. There's a tiny bit of freshly baked bread. There's even more in the glass, a little bit of a green characteristic, a little grassy, a little earthy characteristic. There is no burn. I almost actually have to search the nose to kind of find some oomph, find some heft. This is 57.7, I believe, % alcohol. No burn on the nose. Not the fullest, not the richest nose, which you might find hard to believe with all the notes I've been pulling out. Very complex, very clean nose. Whew. There's honey. Again, some more berries. There's a lot of things in here. Vanilla notes, slight bit of shredded coconut. I feel like anything you would look for in bourbon, I'm able to find in this. It's not as powerful as the King of Kentucky, but it's every bit as good as any Four Roses that I've had so far. Let's go ahead and go into the taste. Wow. Right away, for how low it was in the glass in terms of its grip it might get on you, it is clinging to the palate immediately from the first sips that you get. It rushes at first with these big juicy fruit notes. It's juicy, it's syrupy, it's saturated. There's red fruits. That powdered sugar comes back. It kind of makes me think of the 2018 Four Roses LE a little bit in that regard. But then it morphs. It's got some barrel char. It's got some brownie notes. It has these lower in the glass, these brandy cherries, this kind of prune, fig, dried fruit notes that I notice in things that get more on the tannic side. There are some pops of citrus in here. Not very prominent. It's not overly citrusy, but there's some like apricot. There's some pops of orange that sit right in the middle. It does not get hot. It does not attack. It doesn't get abrasive. In the finish, it rolls over and shows you that it is oaky. This is, man, that well-oiled leather comes back. The spice is really well placed. Again, this is OBSV, so Four Roses, that's their higher rye. What I was looking forward to in a 20-year expression in my head, knowing that I like the OESVs in this 10 to 12-year range, was hoping that the spice would be subdued in this because of the age and probably because of its location in the warehouse. I think it does that. The spice is good. I wonder if it would fall apart if it was the lower rye recipe, or how sweet it would come across. The sweetness is fresh, jammy fruits initially, slight bit of this tannic dry, not quite bubblegum, because when I say bubblegum, I normally use that in a slightly negative way. But again, Four Roses drinkers may know what I'm talking about. It's there, but man, that oak takes over, and you were left with a lot of barrel char, a lot of leather. Again, with this brownie, a touch floral, and the linger on the palate. I feel like it is slightly less complex than the King of Kentucky gets, but it's not so abrasive. I kind of like the King of Kentucky for its abrasiveness. This does have a very long linger, very oaky linger. Definitely shows its age. It lingers with a lot of fruit. There are some vanillins as well. Kind of leans towards a malted caramel-like note. This is a beautiful 20-year bourbon expression. It is very different than King, so I can't compare it. Why do I keep saying that? I don't actually even know. I think it's just because that's the pinnacle to me. It being old and spending half of its age, in cycled warehouses. I think that I just put things that are hyper-aged in cask strength against that. That's probably not fair. Some of the notes on the nose of this remind me of Michter's 20. I would have to try that again to know which one would be better. I agree with people who mention that some of the younger whiskeys are the sweet spot. In regards to this pour, as someone who likes oak, someone who likes age, I like this a lot. I love this pour. In fact, I would like to continue to sit with it, continue to keep revisiting it. I think there's a little bit more snap, a little bit more pep, a little bit more sugary sweetness that comes out of the younger pours than this. This is a great example of a well-aged whiskey. People who appreciate that for that reason, and compounded by the fact that they might be a Four Roses drinker, this is going to give you a lot that you might desire. Being just a Four Roses drinker, I could see why you would find other single barrels, younger single barrels, and say they have this beat. I can see that. This kind of glazed donut sweetness, the powdered sugar, the fruits, the raspberry. I've noticed this on other things before, other LEs before, that might even be a little bit more accessible to come by, even on the secondary market, than this one is presently. I like that slight barrel char that kind of reminds me, as my friend Q had mentioned in his blog, I'll link that down below too, that it kind of has a little char that kind of reminds me of the OESF run HW55. I've reviewed that in one of my previous videos. Go back there, one of the single barrels that did it in a lineup. Very interesting run. There's a little quirkiness too that reminds me of the OBSQs from this year. This is just a summation of a lot of things that I like about Four Roses. Four Roses pours, Four Roses as a brand in general, and whiskey in general. A lovely pour. I'm glad you all let me share it with you here on the channel for the Four Roses 2021 Visitor Center Private Selection. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Once again, a reminder, jump down below, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, let me know if you're enjoying the content. If you want to hear me talk about this 20-year compared to other Four Roses or other products, I'd love to hear it down below. Have you tried this 20-year? I'd love to hear your reactions to it down below. I know there's been a myriad of single barrels. They all will have some slight variance, so I'd be curious to hear what your all's impression is. Feel free to tune into the Entry Proof Podcast if you want more content. That's a podcast that I do with Drew P. Whiskey. He's also here on YouTube, and we're live on his channel on Thursday nights talking about, we're doing blind flights. We're talking about upcoming barrel picks, one that we have actually dropping this week. So if you're on Patreon, you'll be able to hear about that. If you're on Thursday night stream, you'll be able to hear about that. What are you saying when you're talking about Patreon? Well, we have a Patreon. It's how you can support me. It's how you can support Drew. Patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. Feel free to jump over there. Sometimes I do some giveaways. Sometimes we just give some information about our barrel picks, but it funds us being able to create this content week after week. Until next time, everybody, have a happy holiday. We'll see you all later.